Everybody, it's Mike Messier, and I just felt inspired. I was listening to Shane Douglas, the franchise, a guy who I really respect, loved his career in ECW especially. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Shane Douglas two or three times, probably more than that in my life. But he was talking about the Priscilla Kelly incident, among other things. And I don't think Shane was fully informed of what happened or the logistics. And I think that if he was, he might have been a little more tempered in his criticism of Priscilla Kelly's maneuver. And he didn't, attack her at all personally because he's never met her and everything. But basically, what he didn't touch upon is that the spot was in a bar wrestling show, 21 and over crowd. Shane Douglas mentioned that he has, children that he wouldn't want to see at this show. And but what Shane Douglas didn't say was that, or he wasn't informed that the show was for 21 and older. This is the Priscilla Kelly spot with the tampon a few weeks ago. So Shane just didn't really know that the promotion she was working for was having the show in a bar, 21 and older crowd, and that there was no kids in the audience. And furthermore, the spot and the show in general, as far as I know, did not have a television deal. So it wasn't like a TNA or Anthem or ECW or WWE, WCW, anything like that. So Shane, I think, just criticized her without knowing the full story. And I do like that show, the Triple Threat podcast, but they really didn't point out when Shane was misinformed or uninformed. And I really have a lot of respect for Shane Douglas, but I am going to step out and just disagree with him. If you really want to hear the best analysis from a worker in the business, Taz. I listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts. I do my videos, but I listen to a whole lot of podcasts. Taz had really broken this Priscilla Kelly thing down quite a bit. Next stop in the wrestling world, I'm really trying to get away from WWE, and I'm actually watching not on the WWE network. I'm watching through other sources every single show of Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. I think it was June of 2002 the promotion started. And it's really kind of fun if you get a chance to watch that first ever TNA show in its entirety, which had the Gauntlet for the Gold and it had Ricky Steamboat as a referee. And I won't give away a bunch of spoilers in case you haven't seen it, because at this point, that show is 17 years old. That show feels more alive than a lot of stuff. I mean, and I've also thought it was great that the first ever wrestler introduced to actually wrestle at a TNA live pay per view was AJ Styles. It was AJ Styles, Jerry Lynn, another fucking legend, and Low Key, who is still wrestling to this day, and still kind of trying to break through that kind of window that he's got for himself. But the three of them against the Flying Elvises, who I don't think we've seen any of those Flying Elvises before. It was also fun to see a guy in the Gauntlet for the Gold who I think lasted the longest in the match, Apollo, who I've actually worked with for one night. Apollo and I actually were on a wrestling show together, and then Apollo and I were in a movie together with Tom Sizemore. So Apollo, I'm pretty sure that's the same guy, was in this Gauntlet for the Gold. That if you get a chance to watch the TNA, check that out. Other things in the wrestling world in this live rant, maybe I'll use this. I know some people have been giving me constructive criticism on my, so hang tight if you can. I'm trying to fucking do this goddamn thing. There we go. So just give me a moment, everybody. More things in the pro wrestling world. Obviously, this AEW is the big news from the independent world. A lot of people are kind of debating, and one debate I got into with a guy on Facebook in one of the wrestling fans groups was, why does this promotion need to exist? I mean, the guy who was arguing was basically saying, well, why does this need to exist? And he was kind of looking at that, in my opinion, from his own viewpoint, like, why should he care, or why should he as a viewer want to watch All Elite Wrestling as opposed to Ring of Honor, as opposed to, he was mentioning CCW, which not a lot of people mentioned, and my counter to him was to make money. It's not about whether he as one person, one fan, is going to want to watch their promotion. It's whether or not those guys, no, I'm joking. I'm so upset about this. But it's not about him or his needs as a fan, what he wants to see. It's about whether or not those guys can make a buck, whether or not those guys can make money. And they don't care. The Khan family and the Codys and the Young Bucks don't care if Ring of Honor is competition or if CCW is. I don't even think they would be competition, or Anthem Wrestling. Like it's every man for himself, every promotion for himself, every woman for themselves. There's no reason for the Khans to say, "Oh, gee whiz, some wrestling fan on Facebook doesn't want us to start a promotion because he's already got enough wrestling choices. Let's not do this." They're in it to make money, and the more money you have going into adventure, uh, fortunately or not, is usually or often if you're going to make money coming out of it. So if the family has all this money to pump into production and getting the best talent they can get and marketing and all that stuff, then they're going to be more successful, regardless of if there's 5 or 6 other promotions out there that offer similar style of wrestling. So I just didn't quite understand. I'm not trying to be condescending to this guy, but he seemed to be a little naive, thinking like, well, why should they do this? Well, because they want to, and they think they can make money doing it. And maybe, and another a friend of mine, I'll give him credit, Frank from One Wrestling Network, was kind of outspoken in calling Tony Khan, a money mark. Well, maybe so, but if it's his money, he can spend it on whatever he wants. I mean, people spend money to go to comic book conventions. We spend money to go to movies. We spend money to buy a new pair of jeans. You can spend money, a $40 meal as opposed to a $10 meal, or a $200 meal. A $200 bottle of wine compared to $10. People can spend their money however they want. So whether it's Ted Turner buying WCW in 1988 against probably the advice of his constituents or his underlings, or whether it's the Khan family going into the wrestling business with, and some have criticized them as having pie in the sky ideals. This video quality is not the best. I apologize. But if people, I'm thinking that a lot of my videos are probably best watched with another window because I'm not much to look at. I mean, I'm not an ugly guy, but you could probably just put my volume on and just pretend this is a fucking audio podcast. You don't need to see the hijinks back here. But I would say honestly that if Tony Khan thinks he can make a buck, he can make a buck, and these guys are going to change the world of wrestling and change the universe. I'm not going to stop him. Why would I want to? But on the other hand, I hope that they kind of limit some of the gimmickry. Meaning, my own personal taste would be, a competitive basically a WCW or NWA wrestling Crockett style promotion, which of course Cody Rhodes has that legacy, or Cody. But I get a little nervous with these guys when they do all their Joey Ryan-esque, skits and so forth, that then maybe that's their slant. People are reporting now that the Young Bucks and Omega were offered all this money to go to WWE. And so, if the WWE is going to extend themselves, honestly, to, no offense to the Young Bucks, but a couple of guys that were, 220, 230 pounds at the most. And, 10 years ago, they were just doing comedy little spots on WWE as almost background workers or extras. If the WWE is actually asking them to come over for all that money that's being reported, then the WWE might have a little shake in their boots. And I also saw the thing with the WWE is now doing with the Good Brothers, Anderson and Gallows. They're doing these Botch Mania ripoffs. So the WWE, as much as we criticize them, we can criticize WWE some more. They're actually ripping off the internet people. I mean, the guy who does Botch Mania is now seeing that his concept of all these wrestling botches are pretty much being, WWE stealing that concept, and WWE would make the argument, well, it's our footage, we can do whatever the hell we want, and this guy is bootlegging our stuff in the first place, and that's very true. But I don't think, it is what it is. But don't think that the world of bar wrestling or independent wrestling is not influencing WWE. It is. So that's why I get personally upset. As you know, if you've seen any of my videos, the Tommaso Ciampa thumb in the asshole spot with Jushin Liger, Joey Ryan, all these things that I don't like, it's because it does influence the WWE. Now, at the same time, I'm as a wrestling fan myself, I'm turning away from the current product, which, and people say, well, do you don't like wrestling? No, I do love wrestling, but I'm going to love wrestling on my own terms. And I would encourage each and every fan to love wrestling on their own terms. If you're watching stuff now that you don't like, or you find that Priscilla Kelly is offensive, or whatever, then find yourself some Wendy Richter versus the Spider, 1985, November of '85 in Madison Square Garden. Find yourself Survivor Series 1. There's a 5-on-5 women's tag team match of the first ever Survivor Series. I got into another little debate with a guy, I think in the OWN group, which I think it was Nick, who was saying Charlotte Flair is the most decorated female wrestler of all time, and I stepped in and I said, well, if you just give a bunch of if you give a bunch of championships over and over again to the same woman, you can call her the most decorated champion of all time. You can call Jerry Lawler the most decorated USWA Memphis champion of all time because he gave himself the belt. But if you really think about who advanced wrestling, or who was ahead of their time, or who was a great worker, I'd put Sherry Martel and Medusa right up there, probably above Charlotte Flair. Now, I really do love Charlotte Flair as a performer. I think, and the guy will requested me to make a top 10 list of women's wrestlers, which I will do, but I'm going to have to sit there and think about it because I don't want to make a shitty list. I mean, I'm going to make a fucking good list. But I'd put Charlotte Flair in the top 3 or 5. But I would definitely put Medusa and Sherry up there. I mean, Sherry Martel's fucking fantastic, and so vocal and such great energy, and a woman who could do it as a wrestler herself and as a manager. And really, her peak might have been going back to the AWA in '86 when Sherry was managing Playboy Buddy Rose and Doug Summers as a tag team champions, feuding with the Rockers, and also the women's champion herself. So I just want to put that out there that, there is a thing, and I'm getting to the point in my life, guys, where I can see when there's timeism, whatever the fuck, there's a term for that, when you judge things based on, oh, it's happening now, or this is what I know. When people use the term greatest champion of all time, God, I'm choking like a motherfucker today. They use that, say, with John Cena. Oh, he's the greatest champion of all time. Okay, what about The Rock? What about Steve Austin? What about Hulk Hogan? What about Bruno Sammartino? I'm talking about when people say that something's the greatest of all time. And I was using the John Cena reference, but you could use anything. You'd say Kiss is the greatest rock band of all time. Well, then someone might say, what about the Beatles? Someone might say, well, Stone Temple Pilots are the greatest rock band of all time. Dropkick Murphys, all this all greatest of all time is so fucking subjective, because that really basically means in your own lifetime. You never hear people say that. Well, Kiss is the greatest rock band of my lifetime. The Beatles are the greatest rock band that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Ric Flair is the greatest wrestler I've ever seen in my. People don't quantify that because that would be too hard, too difficult. But that's really the way it should be. If you say that Ed Strangler Lewis was the greatest wrestler of all time, but you died before Ric Flair existed, then what the fuck would you know? And there might be a wrestler 30 or 40 years from now, when we're all dead and buried, that's the greatest wrestler of all time. That might sell out Japan, Tokyo. There might be a promotion that comes along in 100 years that buys the WWE. WWE could, in our lifetime, conceivably sell to Disney, and then Disney could branch off and sell the WWE stuff and video library to somebody else. So just putting that out there. I mean, you can look into the history of soda. Royal Crown soda was once the number 2 or number 3 soda in the world. It's not now. And you talk about all types of things. I mean, Bob's Big Boy restaurants. I mean, things come and fucking go. I'm doing a new thing now, guys, when I'm trying to do, cardio exercise in the morning, and I have this fucking Gazelle. What's a Gazelle? Gazelle's a piece of exercise equipment I actually got for free. So I fucking rocked out to this Gazelle this morning and did a little cardio. I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but I mean, I have this fucking Gazelle. I'll just show you the tip of it. I don't want to show you all my goddamn, but this is the Gazelle, and basically I fucking hop on that thing and I do a little bit of exercise and I try to burn some fucking fat. So anyway, folks, I'm trying to think if there's any big wrestling stories I missed out on. Raw and SmackDown, didn't watch them, and I've hidden that point, and I don't know if you can tell. If you're a longtime fan, and I have some longtime fans who've been watching these videos from the start, Jay Bach and others are really supportive. Will Mahoney might be out there, and others who've gotten to watch some of the videos. You can see that some of my anger is tempering a little bit with my pro wrestling angry rants, because the less WWE I watch, the less angry I am. And people have been kind of comparing me or asking me about JD from New York and Joe Cronin, a buddy of mine, and I really like Joe Cronin. He's a great guy. But I do worry about a guy like Joe who's kind of depending on WWE existing for his viewership, because at some point it is a tough situation. If you're criticizing something for not being good, which I do and Joe does, but if the promotion's not good, meaning WWE, then how long can that sustain? How long can you criticize something for being piss poor before you just stop watching it altogether? So I mean, to just say how bad WWE is, but yet none of us, unless we work for the WWE, have a goddamn way to help it, um, then we're fucked as fans. So now this JD from New York, I think he's a little bit. I like him, but the thing with JD from New York, I think he actually thinks that WWE cares. And I'm not trying to be a condescending jerk, but I think JD is under the false impression that he thinks WWE gives a shit about his opinion or my opinion or anyone's opinion. They're not going to, uh, you know, do anything that has any fucking relevance to us fans. And their thing a month ago or a month and a half ago of we're coming out, the McMahons are coming out to take over Raw. I mean, has anything changed? Not really. So it's a work, it's a shoot. It's a work. I mean, it's a work shoot. As far as WWE social media, some people have been giving me a lot of criticism for my videos or when I share my videos that WWE social media is a work. It is, folks. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. They script the promos for the wrestlers. The matches are highly scripted. Why wouldn't these uh, fucking tweets be scripted as well? All right, folks. I'm not sure if we're actually on the air or have lost the picture or something. But basically, Mike Messier just wanted to check in. You can check out my other videos, the social media, WWE. Check out those. My Priscilla Kelly videos up. I've had a hard time speaking because I'm drinking a goddamn protein shake while doing this live chat. And thanks for checking in. Look, whatever you do this weekend, if you're watching wrestling, if I understand there's a big NXT show coming up, but you also have that time travel capabilities. You can watch wrestling from different eras. You don't have to watch wrestling of just your own era. I think my picture is frozen now, but I'm still speaking, and so we'll see whatever the fuck's going on. Anyway, guys and ladies, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your wrestling no matter what you watch, and just do what's best for you. Don't feel that you have to watch some wrestling, whether it's WWE or anything else, because you feel that you have to. You don't have to. You do whatever the hell you want with your life. Mike Messier, Mike.